When a man brought a woman home for the first time, he asked her to remove her stockings. It wasn't because of any strange fetish. Instead, he placed the stockings into a teleportation machine. As the man activated the machine within seconds, the stockings vanished into thin air and then reappeared in another teleportation device. This wasn't some kind of magic trick, but the result of genius scientist Seth's dedicated work on a teleportation machine. The device could disassemble and transport any object, then reassemble and restore it. This invention had the potential to change the world. Veronica, a journalist, was instantly intrigued when she heard about it. Reporting on this could make her a global sensation. However, Seth declined the interview, explaining that the machine wasn't perfect yet. It could only transport inanimate objects and couldn't handle living beings. Seth didn't want to reveal an incomplete invention. Unexpectedly, as soon as Veronica returned to her office, she told her boss, Jason, who was also her ex-boyfriend, about it. Without witnessing the teleportation machine firsthand, Jason was skeptical. But then, Seth reached out and invited Veronica to a restaurant. He told her he would agree to an interview, but only after his invention was successful. Veronica eagerly agreed. Seth soon began live experiments, with Veronica filming everything. The first test subject was a baboon. Unfortunately, the experiment failed. After teleportation and reassembly, the baboon turned into a grotesque, bloody creature. Seth speculated that some error in cellular reassembly had caused the baboon's genes to scramble. Despite the failed experiment, Seth and Veronica grew closer. During an intense conversation, Seth had a sudden burst of inspiration. He immediately went to his computer and reprogrammed the teleportation process. This time, when he tested on another baboon, it worked perfectly. The baboon emerged from the machine lively and normal. To be cautious, Seth decided to send the baboon for a full medical examination. If it was cleared, he would proceed with human trials. The medical tests would take several days, so Seth and Veronica planned to celebrate. However, just as Seth ordered takeout, Veronica discovered a document on the piano. It was a flyer Jason had sent over, showcasing Seth's teleportation invention. Jason intended to claim credit for Seth's work. Furious, Veronica left Seth and rushed to confront Jason at the office. Jason insisted he wasn't trying to steal credit for Seth's invention. He claimed he just wanted to know the progress of the teleportation research and, at the same time, hoped to rekindle his relationship with Veronica. However, back at the lab, Seth was feeling jealous. He suspected that Veronica and Jason were getting back together. Drinking alone, Seth glanced at the lively baboon on the sofa and had a bold idea. Fueled by alcohol, he decided to conduct a human experiment immediately. As the chamber door closed, a fly entered without Seth noticing, though the baboon saw it. After the teleportation, Seth emerged unharmed, thinking the human trial was a success. That evening, Veronica returned to the lab to apologize to Seth. He accepted her apology and proudly mentioned he had completed the human experiment. The next day, Seth noticed strange changes in his body. He felt an extraordinary surge of energy and could perform high-difficulty tasks effortlessly despite never exercising. When drinking coffee, he craved excessive amounts of sugar, and he noticed a few coarse hairs growing on his back. Concerned about Seth's unusual behavior, Veronica worried about his health. Seth, however, claimed he felt rejuvenated and evolved after the teleportation, even trying to persuade Veronica to undergo the process herself so they could become new humans together. Terrified of the experiment, Veronica refused. Suddenly, Seth became enraged and yelled at Veronica, increasing her suspicion that something was wrong with him. Furious, Seth stormed out of the lab to find a willing woman to teleport. He quickly went to a bar where he impressed a woman by easily defeating a strong man in an arm wrestling match, breaking the man's arm with little effort. The impressed woman immediately left the bar with Seth. Back at the lab, Seth teleported himself again. Just as he was about to force the woman into the chamber, Veronica returned. After the woman left, Veronica revealed she had taken the coarse hairs for analysis and found they belonged to an insect. She believed something had gone wrong during Seth's teleportation. Seth, however, insisted he was perfectly healthy, displaying his strength by easily tearing apart wooden boards. He suggested Veronica was the one who needed medical attention and then angrily threw her out of the lab. Soon after Veronica left, Seth noticed in the bathroom mirror that his face was sprouting hairs and showing signs of decay. He tried using a razor but found it ineffective. The hairs wouldn't come off. Worse yet, his nails began to fall off at the slightest touch. At this moment, Seth finally realized his body was undergoing a drastic transformation. To understand what was happening, he rushed to his computer to review the data from his first teleportation. The footage revealed that a fly had entered the chamber during the process. Post-teleportation, Seth's genes had fused with the fly's, meaning he was mutating into a human-fly hybrid. Grasping the severity of the situation, Seth immediately called Veronica. When she arrived at the lab, she found Seth in a dire state. His limbs were deteriorating, and he needed crutches to walk. Veronica was heartbroken upon learning of Seth's plight, but felt powerless to help. She turned to Jason for assistance. Jason suggested seeing Seth in person might help them think of a solution. Veronica returned to the lab to record a video of Seth, but his condition had worsened. His limbs had transformed into fly legs, enabling him to crawl on the ceiling. He could only consume food like a fly, using his saliva to dissolve it before eating. Jason was horrified by the video, unable to think of any solution. Veronica then revealed a shocking piece of news to Jason. She was pregnant with Seth's child. Unsure of what to do, she was terrified at the thought of giving birth to a fly hybrid baby. Meanwhile, Seth, now completely monstrous with even his teeth falling out, awaited in the lab. Veronica visited the lab again to tell Seth about the pregnancy, but upon seeing his condition, she decided against it. Seth urged her to leave, fearing he might harm her. Veronica left in tears, resolved to terminate the pregnancy to avoid birthing a monster. Unbeknownst to her, Seth, who was on the ceiling, overheard the entire conversation. When Veronica arrived at the hospital for the procedure, Seth suddenly burst through the window and abducted her. He took her to the lab's rooftop, pleading with her not to terminate the pregnancy, as it was his last hope. Veronica, however, was petrified, fearing she would give birth to a fly hybrid baby. At this moment, Jason arrived at the lab carrying a shotgun for safety. He approached the computer and discovered Seth's horrifying plan. Seth had built another teleportation machine and intended to use it for a fusion teleportation with a human, aiming to dilute the fly genes in his body and gradually revert to his human form. Suddenly, Seth descended from above, knocking Jason to the ground. Fortunately, Veronica intervened in time, pleading with Seth, which spared Jason's life. Seth then scaled the walls, brought Veronica down from the rooftop, and took her to the computer, revealing his plan. He intended to fuse with Veronica, believing this would allow them to be together forever as a family. Seth activated the teleportation machine and roughly dragged Veronica towards it. Veronica fiercely resisted, inadvertently tearing off a piece of Seth's face, revealing the grotesque transformation underneath. All of Seth's skin began to peel off, exposing him as a horrifying fly-like creature. Amidst Veronica's screams, Seth ruthlessly threw her into the teleportation chamber and then entered the adjacent one himself. Just as the machine was about to start, Jason regained consciousness. With his remaining strength, he fired a shot that severed the connection to Veronica's teleportation chamber. Seeing this, Seth smashed through the glass door of his chamber, attempting to escape. As he stepped out, the teleportation machine activated, partially transporting him along with part of the machine. The screen showed that Seth had fused with the machine's components. When the chamber door opened, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and machinery emerged. Veronica, seeing her former lover transformed into such a monstrous form, was overcome with sorrow. She aimed with the shotgun but hesitated to pull the trigger. Accepting his fate, Seth positioned the gun barrel against his head. After a painful inner struggle, Veronica reluctantly decided to end his suffering, pulling the trigger and bringing everything to a tragic close.